What if the deepest pain in your life didn't come from an enemy, but from someone who shares your blood? What if the silence you feel at family gatherings, the way your name isn't spoken with warmth anymore, the way you're present but never truly seen, is not something you imagined? What if the ache you carry isn't weakness, but awareness? There are wounds that don't leave marks on the skin. They settle quietly in the chest. They show up when you're alone at night, when you replay conversations in your head, wondering what you did wrong, or why loving them never seemed to be enough. Maybe you've tried to pray it away, tried to forgive faster than your heart could heal, tried to tell yourself, they're family, I should understand, but something still hurts. And maybe what hurts the most isn't what they said or did, but what they never gave you. Affection, protection, acceptance. If you've ever felt invisible in a room full of relatives, if you've ever questioned your worth because the people who were supposed to love you didn't, then stay here. Not to fix anything, not to explain it away, just to breathe for a moment, just to feel seen. Because the place you're standing in right now, this quiet ache, this confusion, this heaviness, may not be the end of your story. It may be the place where something sacred begins. There is a unique kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people, yet feeling completely alone. You sit at the table. You answer when spoken to. You show up because you're supposed to. But inside, something is missing. You sense it in the pauses, in the conversations that never quite include you, in the way your presence feels tolerated, not cherished. And you start asking yourself quiet questions you never say out loud. Why do I feel like I don't belong in my own family? Why do I feel more guarded here than anywhere else? Why does loving them cost me so much of myself? Maybe you've blamed yourself, told yourself you're too sensitive, too emotional, too different. Maybe you've tried to shrink, to soften your truth, to stay quiet just to keep the peace. And still, the distance remains. That's the part no one talks about. The confusion of loving people who don't know how to love you back. The grief of realizing that shared memories don't always mean shared hearts. It's exhausting to keep reaching, to keep hoping this time will be different, to keep believing that if you explain yourself one more time, they'll finally understand. And when they don't, you carry the disappointment alone. If this feels familiar, you're not broken. You're not failing at love. You're experiencing something deeply human. The pain of being emotionally disconnected from the very place that was supposed to feel like home. And that pain, it deserves gentleness, not guilt. What if this pain isn't asking you to endure more, but to understand something deeper? What if the distance you keep trying to close isn't meant to be crossed by force, effort, or self-sacrifice? Because sometimes the struggle isn't that you're unlovable, it's that you're standing in a place where the language of your heart is not spoken. And that changes everything. You've been interpreting the silence as rejection. You've been reading the distance as failure. You've been carrying guilt for something you may never have caused. But what if this separation isn't about punishment, or abandonment, or God turning his face away? What if it's about protection? There are moments when love doesn't look like closeness. when grace doesn't sound like reconciliation, when God doesn't step in to fix the relationship, but instead quietly steps in front of you. Not to harden your heart, not to make you bitter, but to keep you from breaking in a place that no longer knows how to hold you. This journey isn't about blaming your family, and it isn't about cutting people off in anger. It's about learning why certain doors close without your permission, why certain connections weaken even when you try to save them, and why God sometimes answers your prayers by creating space instead of unity. If you are willing, we're going to walk into that understanding together, slowly, gently, and by the end, you may discover that what felt like loss was actually guidance. At first, it looks simple: a disagreement, a misunderstanding, a harsh word that was never repaired, a pattern of distance that slowly became normal. On the surface, it feels like relationship problems. But beneath that, there is something much quieter, much deeper. The real issue is rarely what happened. It's what never happened. The love that wasn't expressed. The safety that was never created. The emotional permission you were never given to be fully yourself. Some family members don't know how to love without control. Some confuse authority with affection. Some were never taught how to see another person's heart without feeling threatened by it. And when someone begins to grow, to change, to heal, to walk differently, it exposes what others have buried inside themselves. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your becoming highlights their stagnation. So instead of meeting you with curiosity, they meet you with distance. Instead of celebration, they respond with silence. Instead of love, they offer tolerance. This is where many people get stuck, trying to fix the symptoms without understanding the root. You keep asking, how do I make them understand me? But the deeper question is, are they even able to? And sometimes, the most painful truth is this: the people who hurt us most are not always cruel. They are simply emotionally limited. God sees that limitation clearly, and He knows what continued exposure to it would cost you. When the distance lingers, it doesn't just stay in the relationship, it seeps into everything else. You start second-guessing yourself in conversations, wondering if you're too much or somehow not enough. You notice it in how carefully you choose your words, how often you explain yourself, how quickly you apologize, even when you haven't done anything wrong. In relationships outside your family, you may overextend, overgive, overstay, because somewhere inside, you're still trying to earn the love you should have been given freely. Emotionally, the cost is heavy. You carry guilt that doesn't belong to you. You feel responsible for keeping peace that was never yours to maintain. You absorb tension, silence, peace, and judgment until it becomes part of your inner voice. Spiritually, something else happens. You begin to confuse closeness with safety. You confuse loyalty with self-erasure. You confuse endurance with love. And slowly, almost without noticing, you drift away from yourself. Your joy dims. Your clarity blurs. Your prayers feel heavy instead of honest. This is the unseen damage of staying too close to people who cannot love you well. Not because they are evil, not because they intended to harm you, but because Proximity to emotional limitation creates quiet wounds. And God, He notices those wounds long before you call them by name. Beneath the silence, beneath the distance, beneath the subtle rejection, there is fear. Not always your fear, often theirs. The fear of losing control, the fear of being outgrown, the fear of facing parts of themselves they've spent a lifetime avoiding. When you begin to change, when your spirit becomes quieter but stronger, when you stop reacting the way you used to, it unsettles people who rely on old versions of you to feel secure. So they withdraw, they criticize, they minimize. Not because you are wrong, but because your growth threatens the balance they're used to. And here's the fear you carry. The fear that if you stop trying, you'll be alone. The fear that distance means you failed. The fear that choosing peace means choosing abandonment. So you keep reaching back, explaining, softening, sacrificing pieces of yourself, hoping it will restore what once felt like home. But deep inside, you already know. Going back to who you were will cost you who you're becoming. This is where many people get trapped, between love and survival, between loyalty and truth, which is why this story matters. There was a man who lived in a house filled with familiar voices. Laughter echoed through the rooms. Names were spoken with ease. Meals were shared at the same table every night. From the outside, everything looked whole, but inside him, something was always tight, like a breath he never fully released. He was kind, dependable, the one who showed up when others didn't. Yet no matter how much he gave, he remained unseen. When he spoke from the heart, the room went quiet. When he set boundaries, the atmosphere shifted. When he grew stronger, the warmth grew colder. So he learned to shrink. He laughed softer, dreamed quieter, became smaller so the space around him wouldn't feel threatened. He told himself this was love, that endurance meant loyalty, that staying meant faithfulness. But every night, when the house fell silent, he felt the same ache, a sense that the place he was standing in no longer had room for who he was becoming. And still, he stayed, because walking away from strangers is easy. Walking away from blood feels like betrayal. One evening, the tension finally surfaced. It wasn't loud. It didn't explode. It slipped out in a sentence spoken casually, almost carelessly. A remark that questioned his motives. A joke that carried an edge. A look that said, "You've changed." The room laughed. He didn't. Something inside him cracked, not dramatically, but quietly. The way something precious breaks when it's been under pressure for too long. He tried to explain, tried to soften his words so they wouldn't bruise anyone else, tried to make peace without making space for himself. But the more he spoke, the clearer it became. He was defending a version of himself they had already decided not to see. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing something painful. Staying was no longer neutral. It was costing him clarity. It was draining his spirit. It was slowly teaching him to doubt his own worth. And for the first time, the question shifted. Not, "Why don't they love me?" but, What is this place doing to me? The change didn't come with an argument. It came with silence. A pause long enough for him to finally hear his own thoughts without interruption. He stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped shrinking. Not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. And in that quiet space, something unexpected happened. He noticed how his body felt lighter when he wasn't bracing for disappointment, how his breath deepened when no one was watching, measuring, judging. For the first time, distance didn't feel like loss. It felt like relief. He realized the truth he had been avoiding. Love that requires you to disappear is not love that can sustain you. And maybe, just maybe, the separation he feared wasn't rejection at all. It was an invitation to become whole, to step into spaces where his presence didn't need justification, to trust that what walked away was making room for something healthier to arrive. He didn't know what came next, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid to find out. Maybe you see yourself in that story. Maybe you've been the one who stayed longer than you should have, who kept explaining your heart to people who only heard what they wanted. Maybe you learned to read moods instead of expressing needs, to adjust instead of rest, to keep the peace at the cost of your own. And maybe you've wondered, quietly, if stepping back makes you unloving, if distance makes you selfish, if choosing yourself means failing God. But what if it doesn't? What if the exhaustion you feel isn't because you lack faith, but because you've been pouring from a place that was never being refilled? Maybe you're not cold. Maybe you're just tired of bleeding silently. And maybe God isn't asking you to try harder, to love more, to endure longer. Maybe He's simply asking you to notice what your soul has been telling you all along. Inside you, there's a quiet war. One voice says, "Be patient, be understanding. This is family." Another whispers, "But why does love feel like self-betrayal?" You feel torn between who you were taught to be and who you are slowly becoming. There's guilt in choosing distance, fear in choosing honesty, grief in realizing that some people may never meet you where your heart lives now. You replay moments, wondering if you could have said things differently, been softer, been quieter, been less yourself. And yet, even in that self-questioning, something inside you knows. Going back would mean going backward. You don't want revenge. You don't want to be right. You just want peace without having to disappear to earn it. That tension you feel between staying loyal and staying alive is not a sign of failure. It's the sound of your spirit asking for a different way forward. What if change doesn't begin with confrontation, but with permission? Permission to stop forcing connection. Permission to rest from explaining yourself. Permission to let silence exist without filling it with guilt. This isn't about cutting people off. It's about loosening your grip on what keeps hurting you. Hope doesn't disappear when you step back. Sometimes it finally has room to breathe. You don't have to decide everything today. You don't have to label anyone a villain. You don't even have to understand the full purpose yet. All you're being invited to do is to trust that God sees more than you do, that He knows which connections strengthen you and which ones slowly drain the life from you. Change in this season may simply look like listening, to yourself, and to the quiet guidance you've been ignoring. There is a moment in Scripture that often passes quietly, but it carries immense weight. Even Jesus, gentle, compassionate, perfect in love, stood in a room filled with people hungry for truth, while a message was brought to him. Your mother and your brothers are outside. Anyone else would have stopped. Anyone else would have felt the pull of obligation. Blood calling to blood. But Jesus did something unexpected. He didn't rush to the door. He didn't abandon the presence he was standing in. Instead, he looked at those seated near him, those who were listening, growing, aligned, and he said, in essence, "Here is my family," not because he rejected his mother, not because he dishonored his blood, but because he revealed a deeper truth. Family is not only who you came from, it is who can walk with you where God is taking you. That moment wasn't cold. It was clear. It wasn't rebellion. It was alignment. And in that clarity, Jesus showed us something many struggle to accept. Even love must sometimes yield to purpose. What Jesus chose in that moment was not distance born of anger, but restraint born of wisdom. He didn't explain himself. He didn't justify his choice. He didn't argue with those who might misunderstand. He stayed still. That stillness is powerful, because strength is not always found in response. Sometimes it's found in what you refuse to react to. Jesus knew something most of us learn late. Not every call deserves an answer, and not every pull is meant to be followed. Silence, in God's hands, is not avoidance. It is trust. Trust that truth does not need defending. Trust that purpose does not need permission. Trust that God can hold what you release. There are seasons when saying less protects more than saying everything. And there are moments when staying where God placed you, even while someone you love waits outside, is the bravest act of faith you can make. What Jesus showed in that moment was not a rejection of love, but a reordering of it. He honored God first and trusted that everything else would find its rightful place in time. That's the part that speaks directly to you. Because when you choose alignment over approval, when you choose peace over performance, when you choose truth over guilt, you are not losing love, you are clarifying it. Some relationships can only exist when you are smaller than your calling. And when you grow, they resist. Not because you're wrong, but because the old version of you made them comfortable. God's wisdom doesn't always look like reunion. Sometimes it looks like restraint. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like trusting Him to hold what you can no longer carry. And in that trust, your heart begins to settle. Not everything has to be forced. Not everyone has to understand. What is meant to walk with you will find you in the presence, not pull you out of it. There is a quiet shift that happens when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What is this protecting me from?" Reaction says, "Hold on tighter." Wisdom says, "Loosen your grip." Reaction says, "Explain yourself one more time." Wisdom says, "Your peace does not require agreement." Reaction says, "Control the outcome." Wisdom says, "Trust the process." You've been taught that love means endurance, that faith means staying no matter the cost, that walking away is weakness. But God's reframing is gentler and truer. Sometimes love means creating space. Sometimes faith means obedience, not closeness. Sometimes trust means letting God handle what you can no longer fix. Distance does not always mean division, and silence does not always mean loss. In God's hands, both can become instruments of healing, not steps to force change, not rules to follow perfectly, just quiet practices to help you stay rooted while God does the deeper work. Step 1. Notice what drains you. Pay attention to how your body feels after certain interactions. Do you feel heavy, confused, smaller? Your body often recognizes what your heart is still trying to justify. Inner question: what am I feeling after this connection, and why? Step 2. Release the need to be understood. Some people are not confused about you. They are simply committed to misunderstanding you. Peace begins when you stop auditioning for acceptance. Inner question: what would change if I stopped explaining myself? Step 3. Choose honesty over harmony. Harmony that costs you your truth will always collapse eventually. Gentle honesty, especially with yourself, creates real stability. Inner question: where am I staying quiet to keep others comfortable? Step 4. Let God handle the timing. Reconnection is not something you must orchestrate. If healing is meant to come, God will bring it, without you sacrificing your soul to make it happen. Inner question: what am I trying to control that I need to surrender? Step 5. Build life-giving connections. God never removes without intention. As some voices fade, new ones will rise. People who meet you with safety, faith, and respect. Inner question: who helps me feel more like myself after being with them? These are not steps away from love. They are steps toward wholeness. This part matters deeply. Silence does not mean you accept harm. Distance does not mean you excuse abuse. Forgiveness does not mean you offer yourself to be wounded again. God's wisdom never asks you to stay in places that break you. Love is patient, but it is not self-destructive. Grace is powerful, but it is not permission for mistreatment. Boundaries are not walls built in anger. They are doors placed with intention. You are allowed to protect your heart. You are allowed to say enough without hatred. You are allowed to step back without carrying shame. Jesus withdrew often, not because he was weak, but because he was wise. And if God is creating distance in your life, it may not be to isolate you, but to keep you safe while he heals what has been wounded. Take a breath here, not the kind you rush through, but the kind that reaches your chest and reminds your body that it doesn't have to brace anymore. You've carried more than most people know. You've loved deeply in places that could not love you back the same way. You've questioned yourself, your faith, your worth, and yet you're still here, still open, still searching for truth instead of bitterness, still choosing healing over hardness. That alone tells a beautiful story about you. You are not cold for needing space. You are not weak for feeling pain. You are not failing God because some relationships had to change. You are learning how to rest without guilt. And that rest, that quiet settling of the soul, is where God does his gentlest work. This is the moment where you stop trying to hold everything together, not because you don't care, but because you finally trust that you don't have to. You don't need to replay the past tonight. You don't need to solve every relationship. You don't need to decide what tomorrow will look like. You can simply loosen your hands. Let go of the need to be chosen. Let go of the need to be understood. Let go of the weight of carrying what was never yours alone. Surrender is not giving up on love. It's giving love back to God so it can return to you in a healthier form. And in that release, something quiet happens. Your shoulders drop. Your breath steadies. Your heart remembers that it is safe to rest. Let's end this the way it deserves to end. Not with noise, not with pressure, but with quiet honesty. If you are willing, just whisper this in your heart. God, thank you for loving me enough to protect me when I didn't understand. Thank you for the doors you closed that I was too afraid to walk away from. Heal what was wounded in me. Release me from guilt that isn't mine to carry. Teach me to trust your wisdom even when it looks like distance. And if you are building a new kind of family for me, help me recognize it and receive it without fear. Amen. You don't have to feel anything dramatic right now. Peace often arrives quietly. And if this message met you where you are, if it named something you've never had words for, let that be enough. A gentle next step, only if it feels right. Stay connected to spaces that bring you clarity, not confusion. Return to what reminds you that you are not alone. You were never rejected. You were protected. You were never abandoned. You were being prepared. Rest in that truth.